Do you know that feeling when someone dismisses your ideas in a meeting, talks over you, or treats you like you're invisible? That burning sensation in your chest when you realize someone is deliberately undermining you, testing your boundaries, or simply doesn't value what you bring to the table. You're not imagining it. You're not being too sensitive, and you're definitely not powerless to change it. Disrespect is one of the most damaging forces in human relationships. Yet, most people handle it completely wrong. They either explode in anger, creating drama and making themselves look unstable, or they shrink back and accept it, teaching others that they can be walked all over without consequences. Both responses guarantee that the disrespect will continue and likely escalate. This audiobook will teach you a third way, a strategic, dignified, and devastatingly effective approach to handling people who don't respect you. By the time you finish listening, you'll have a complete system for recognizing disrespect in all its forms, responding with calculated precision, and building the kind of presence that naturally commands respect from everyone around you. You'll learn why some people seem to attract respect effortlessly while others struggle their entire lives to be taken seriously. You'll discover the psychological triggers that make people test boundaries and how to shut down those tests immediately. Most importantly, you'll develop the inner strength and outer strategies to never tolerate disrespect again while maintaining your integrity and composure. The strategies in this audiobook work because they're based on human psychology, social dynamics, and the harsh realities of how respect actually operates in the real world. This isn't about being aggressive or manipulative. It's about understanding the game and playing it better than anyone else. Chapter 1. The hidden cost of accepting disrespect. Most people drastically underestimate the price they pay for tolerating disrespect. They think it's just about hurt feelings or momentary frustration. But the real damage goes much deeper. When you allow others to disrespect you, you're not just losing their respect. You're losing your own self-respect. And that creates a downward spiral that affects every area of your life. Here's what happens when you consistently accept disrespectful treatment. First, your confidence erodes every time you fail to stand up for yourself. You send a message to your subconscious mind that you're not worth defending. Your brain starts to believe that maybe you really don't deserve better treatment. This internal dialogue becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that shows up in how you carry yourself, how you speak, and how others perceive you. Second, you become a magnet for more disrespectful people. Toxic individuals have an uncanny ability to identify people who won't push back. They can sense your tolerance for poor treatment from across a room. Once they've identified you as someone who accepts disrespect, they'll continue to escalate their behavior because they know they can get away with it. You become their preferred target because you're the path of least resistance. Third, respectful people start to distance themselves from you. High-quality individuals want to associate with others who value themselves. When they see you accepting poor treatment from others, they unconsciously categorize you as someone with low standards. They don't want to be associated with that energy, and they certainly don't want to risk being dragged into the drama that often surrounds people who tolerate toxic behavior. The professional costs are staggering. In the workplace, people who don't command respect get passed over for promotions, excluded from important projects, and paid less than their counterparts who demand better treatment. Your career trajectory is directly tied to how others perceive your value. And if you don't value yourself enough to demand respect, why should anyone else value you enough to advance your career? In relationships, accepting disrespect destroys intimacy and trust. When you allow a partner, friend, or family member to treat you poorly without consequences, you're teaching them that your feelings don't matter. This creates resentment on both sides. You resent them for their treatment and they lose respect for you because of your weakness. The relationship becomes toxic and eventually falls apart. The psychological toll is equally devastating. Chronic exposure to disrespect leads to anxiety, depression, and a constant state of stress. You start second-guessing yourself, walking on eggshells, and developing hypervigilance around other people's moods and reactions. This is no way to live, And it's completely unnecessary once you learn how to handle disrespect properly. But here's the thing most people don't understand. Respect isn't something you earn through good behavior or achievements. Respect is something you command through your standards and boundaries. People don't respect you because you're nice to them. They respect you because you respect yourself enough to demand proper treatment. This is a fundamental shift in thinking that changes everything. When you start demanding respect, several things happen immediately. First, some people will test you harder initially. They're used to you accepting their poor treatment, and they'll push back when you change the rules. This is normal and expected. The key is to remain consistent and not give in to their pressure. Second, toxic people will often remove themselves from your life voluntarily. They'll realize they can't manipulate you anymore and move on to easier targets. This feels like a loss at first, but it's actually a massive win because you're clearing space for better people. Third, new opportunities start appearing when you carry yourself with self-respect. People notice they want to work with you, be around you, and include you in their plans. Your energy changes, your confidence grows, and you start attracting the kind of people and situations you actually want in your life. The cost of accepting disrespect is your entire life trajectory. The benefit of demanding respect is everything you've ever wanted. The choice is yours, but make no mistake about it. This is one of the most important decisions you'll ever make. Your future self is counting on you to make the right choice. Chapter 2. Recognizing disrespect in all its forms. The first step in handling disrespect is learning to recognize it. Because disrespect rarely comes in obvious forms. Most people only notice the blatant examples like being yelled at or openly insulted. But they miss the subtle patterns of disrespect that are often more damaging and definitely more common. Subtle disrespect is particularly dangerous because it's designed to make you question yourself. The person engaging in this behavior maintains plausible deniability while slowly eroding your confidence and sense of reality. They can always claim they didn't mean it that way, that you're being too sensitive, or that you're misinterpreting their intentions. This gaslighting component makes subtle disrespect one of the most insidious forms of psychological manipulation. One of the most common forms of subtle disrespect is the pattern of being consistently interrupted or talked over. This isn't about someone occasionally getting excited and cutting you off mid-sentence. This is about someone who systematically prevents you from completing your thoughts or sharing your ideas. They might wait until you start speaking and then immediately begin talking louder. Or they might acknowledge what you said and then completely ignore it while moving the conversation in a different direction. Another form is the dismissive response pattern. This is when someone consistently minimizes your concerns, ideas, or feelings with phrases like, "That's not a big deal. You're overthinking it," or, "I don't see why you're upset about that." They're not engaging with the substance of what you're saying. They're dismissing your right to have those thoughts or feelings in the first place. Time disrespect is huge and often overlooked. This includes people who are chronically late to meetings with you, cancel plans at the last minute without good reason, or make you wait while they attend to other priorities. Your time is a direct reflection of your value. And when someone consistently wastes your time, they're telling you that you don't matter. This is especially problematic in professional settings where being kept waiting sends a clear message about your place in the hierarchy. The exclusion pattern is another form of subtle disrespect. This happens when you're systematically left out of conversations, meetings, social events, or decision-making processes that you should reasonably be included in. The person doing this might claim it was an oversight or that they didn't think you'd be interested. But when it happens repeatedly, it's a deliberate power play designed to marginalize you. Micro-invalidations are small but consistent ways that people question your competence, intelligence, or judgment. This might look like someone always double-checking your work when they don't do the same for others. Asking if you're sure about information you've provided or explaining things to you that they wouldn't explain to other people at your level. Each individual incident seems minor, but the cumulative effect is to position you as less capable or trustworthy than your peers. Credit theft is a professional form of disrespect where someone takes credit for your ideas, work, or contributions. This might be as blatant as presenting your proposal as their own or as subtle as failing to acknowledge your contribution when discussing a successful project. This behavior is particularly damaging because it directly impacts your professional reputation and advancement opportunities. The patronizing communication style is another red flag. This includes people who speak to you in a condescending tone, use overly simple language when explaining concepts you clearly understand, or treat you like a child who needs guidance on basic life decisions. This communication style is designed to establish a power dynamic where they're the expert and you're the student. Regardless of your actual knowledge or experience, social media disrespect has become increasingly common. This includes people who ignore your messages consistently, like everyone else's posts but never yours, or make passive-aggressive comments on your content. In professional settings, this might look like colleagues who respond quickly to other people's emails but take days to respond to yours. Even when the matter is time-sensitive, physical space violations are also forms of disrespect. This includes people who stand too close when talking to you, touch you without permission, or position themselves in ways that make you feel cornered or uncomfortable. Your physical boundaries are just as important as your emotional boundaries. And people who violate them are sending a clear message that your comfort doesn't matter to them. The key to recognizing disrespect is to trust your gut feelings. If you consistently feel uncomfortable, minimized, or frustrated after interactions with someone, there's probably a pattern of disrespectful behavior happening. Don't let anyone convince you that you're being too sensitive or reading too much into things. Your feelings are valid, and they're often the first indicator that someone is crossing your boundaries. Document patterns rather than individual incidents. Keep track of when these behaviors happen, how frequently they occur, and how they make you feel. This documentation serves two purposes. It helps you recognize patterns that might not be obvious in the moment. And it provides concrete evidence if you need to address the behavior formally. Remember that intent doesn't matter as much as impact. Even if someone claims they didn't mean to be disrespectful, if their behavior consistently has a negative impact on you, it needs to be addressed. You don't have to accept poor treatment just because someone claims they didn't mean it that way. Chapter 3. The psychology behind why people show disrespect. Understanding why people engage in disrespectful behavior is crucial for developing effective strategies to handle it. Disrespect is never really about you. Even though it feels personal, it's always about the other person's insecurities, power struggles, learned behaviors, or psychological needs. When you understand the underlying motivations, you can respond more strategically and less emotionally. The most common driver of disrespectful behavior is insecurity. People who feel uncertain about their own value, competence, or position often try to elevate themselves by diminishing others. This is a subconscious strategy to feel better about themselves without having to actually improve or grow. When someone consistently disrespects you, ask yourself what they might be insecure about. Are they threatened by your knowledge, skills, relationships, or success? Understanding their insecurity gives you power because you can address the root cause rather than just the symptoms. Power dynamics play a huge role in disrespectful behavior. Some people have learned that respect is a zero-sum game, meaning that for them to have power and respect, others must have less. This is particularly common in hierarchical environments like workplaces or families where there's competition for resources, attention, or status. These individuals use disrespect as a tool to establish and maintain their position in the social hierarchy. Learned behavior is another major factor. Many people who engage in disrespectful behavior learn these patterns in childhood or previous relationships. If someone grew up in an environment where disrespect was normalized, they might not even realize their behavior is problematic. They're simply repeating patterns they learned as survival strategies in toxic environments. This doesn't excuse their behavior, but it helps explain why some people seem naturally inclined toward disrespectful interactions. Boundary testing is a psychological phenomenon where people push against your limits to see what they can get away with. This is often unconscious behavior driven by a desire to understand the social dynamics and power structure in any given relationship. Some people are chronic boundary testers who will continue pushing until they meet firm resistance. If you don't establish clear boundaries early in any relationship, you're inviting this kind of testing behavior. Control issues drive a lot of disrespectful behavior. People who feel out of control in their own lives often try to exert control over others as a way to feel more powerful and secure. They might interrupt you to control the conversation, dismiss your ideas to control the decision-making process, or violate your time boundaries to control your schedule. Recognizing when someone is using disrespect as a control mechanism helps you understand that their behavior is about their need for control, not about you as a person. Fear of abandonment can paradoxically lead to disrespectful behavior. Some people engage in what psychologists call rejection sensitivity, where they expect to be rejected or abandoned. So, they act out in ways that create distance before the other person can leave them. This self-sabotaging behavior often manifests as disrespect because pushing people away feels safer than risking genuine connection and potential rejection. Narcissistic tendencies contribute significantly to disrespectful behavior. People with narcissistic traits believe they're superior to others and entitled to special treatment. They genuinely don't understand why they should consider other people's feelings or needs. To them, disrespecting others isn't morally wrong. It's just the natural order of things where their needs take priority over everyone else's. Stress and overwhelm can cause normally respectful people to engage in disrespectful behavior. When people are under significant pressure, they often default to survival mode, which can include being short, dismissive, or inconsiderate with others. This doesn't excuse the behavior, but it helps explain why someone who's usually respectful might suddenly start treating you poorly. Jealousy and competition drive a lot of workplace disrespect. If someone perceives you as a threat to their position, recognition, or advancement opportunities, they might engage in disrespectful behavior as a way to undermine your credibility or reputation. This is particularly common in environments where resources, promotions, or attention are limited. Cultural and generational differences can sometimes be mistaken for disrespect, but they can also be used as excuses for genuinely disrespectful behavior. Some people hide behind claims of cultural differences when their behavior is actually about power and control. Learning to distinguish between genuine cultural misunderstandings and manipulative behavior disguised as cultural differences is an important skill. Past trauma can manifest as disrespectful behavior toward others. People who have been hurt, betrayed, or traumatized sometimes develop defensive mechanisms that involve being disrespectful to others before they can be hurt again. This is a maladaptive coping strategy that protects their vulnerability but damages their relationships. Understanding these psychological drivers doesn't mean you should excuse disrespectful behavior or try to fix the other person. Your job isn't to be someone's therapist or to tolerate poor treatment because you understand why they're doing it. However, understanding the psychology behind disrespect helps you respond more strategically and with less emotional reactivity. When you know that someone's disrespectful behavior is driven by their own insecurity, you can respond with confidence rather than defensiveness. When you recognize that someone is testing your boundaries, you can set clear limits immediately. When you understand that someone is trying to control you, you can refuse to play their game. This psychological understanding gives you power and helps you choose the most effective response strategy for each situation. Chapter 4. Setting immediate boundaries when disrespect occurs. The moment disrespect happens is the moment you must act. Delayed responses to disrespectful behavior are interpreted as acceptance. And acceptance of disrespect guarantees more disrespect. Most people fail at this crucial step because they're caught off guard. They want to avoid conflict or they convince themselves that addressing the behavior will make things worse. This thinking is backwards and self-defeating. Immediate boundary setting serves multiple purposes. First, it stops the disrespectful behavior in its tracks. When you address disrespect immediately, you interrupt the other person's pattern and force them to reconsider their approach. Second, it sends a clear message to everyone who witnesses the interaction that you don't tolerate poor treatment. This protects you from future incidents because people understand your standards. Third, it preserves your self-respect and confidence because you're honoring your own boundaries in real time. The key to effective immediate boundary setting is to remain calm, direct, and non-negotiable. Your emotional state during these moments determines whether your boundary setting is effective or counterproductive. If you respond with anger, hurt, or defensiveness, you give the other person power and ammunition to use against you. They can claim you're overreacting, too emotional, or unstable. However, if you respond with calm assertiveness, you maintain your power and credibility while making your point crystal clear for interruptions and being talked over. You need immediate verbal intervention. Stop talking for a moment, make direct eye contact, and say something like, "I wasn't finished speaking." Or, "Let me complete my thought." Don't smile when you say this. Don't apologize and don't soften your tone to make it more palatable. Your tone should be matter of fact and firm. If they try to continue talking over you, you can escalate by saying, "I need you to stop interrupting me." Or, "I'll wait until you're ready to listen." Then stop talking completely until they give you their attention. When someone dismisses your ideas or feelings, address it immediately and specifically. Say something like, "My concern is valid and deserves consideration." Or, "That's not for you to decide." If they're dismissing your professional input, you can say, "I have experience in this area and my perspective needs to be included in this discussion." The goal is to re-establish your credibility and refuse to accept their dismissal of your value. For time disrespect, set immediate consequences. If someone is consistently late to meetings with you, start the meeting without them or reschedule for a time that works better for your schedule. If someone cancels plans at the last minute, don't automatically offer alternative times. Let them know that your time is valuable and last-minute cancellations affect your other commitments. Say something like, "I understand things come up, but I need more notice in the future." And then let them propose the next meeting time. When someone excludes you from relevant conversations or decisions, address it directly. Say, "I should have been included in that discussion." Or, "Next time, please include me in meetings about projects I'm involved in." Don't ask permission to be included. State your expectation clearly and non-negotiably. If it's a pattern, document it and have a more formal conversation about inclusion and communication expectations. For credit theft or micro-invalidations, correct the record immediately. If someone takes credit for your idea, speak up in the moment and say, "Actually, that was my suggestion from our meeting last week." Or, "I'm glad you like the approach I proposed." Don't wait for a private moment to address it. Correct it publicly so everyone knows the truth. For micro-invalidations, refuse to accept the underlying assumption. If someone questions your expertise unnecessarily, say, "I'm confident in my assessment," or "I don't need that explained to me." Physical boundary violations require immediate and firm responses. If someone stands too close, step back and create the space you need. If they follow you, say, "I need more personal space." Please. If someone touches you without permission, say, "Please don't touch me without asking." Or, "I'm not comfortable with that." Don't worry about seeming rude. Your physical boundaries are non-negotiable. The language you use for immediate boundary setting should be clear, specific, and outcome-focused. Avoid phrases like, "I feel like," or, "Maybe you could," or, "It would be nice if." These phrases weaken your message and make your boundaries seem optional. Instead, use direct statements like, "I need," "I expect," "That's not acceptable," or, "Here's what needs to happen." Your body language during boundary setting is just as important as your words. Maintain eye contact. Keep your posture upright and open and speak in a calm but firm tone. Don't smile unless the situation genuinely calls for it, because smiling can undermine the seriousness of your message. Your nonverbal communication should match the strength of your verbal communication. Be prepared for pushback when you start setting immediate boundaries. People who are used to disrespecting you won't appreciate the change, and they might escalate their behavior initially to test your resolve. This is normal and expected. The key is to remain consistent and not give in to their pressure tactics. If someone becomes aggressive or hostile when you set a boundary, that's information about who they really are, and it confirms that your boundary was necessary. Don't explain or justify your boundaries extensively. Brief explanations are fine, but lengthy justifications make you seem uncertain and give the other person ammunition to argue with you. Your boundaries aren't up for debate or negotiation. They're statements of fact about what you will and won't accept. Practice these responses before you need them. Most people struggle with immediate boundary setting because they don't know what to say in the moment. Role-play different scenarios in your mind or with trusted friends so you're prepared when disrespectful behavior occurs. The more you practice, the more natural and confident your responses will become. Remember that setting immediate boundaries is an investment in all your future interactions with that person. The temporary discomfort of addressing disrespect is far outweighed by the long-term benefit of establishing respectful communication patterns. Every time you set a clear boundary immediately, you're training that person to treat you better in the future. Chapter 5. Strategic responses for different types of disrespectful people. Not all disrespectful people are the same, and effective responses require different strategies based on the type of person you're dealing with. Understanding these personality types and their motivations allows you to choose the most effective approach for each situation. Using the wrong strategy can backfire and make the situation worse, while using the right strategy can resolve the issue quickly and permanently. The aggressive intimidator is someone who uses anger, raised voices, and hostile body language to control situations and people. They've learned that most people back down when faced with aggression, so they use this strategy repeatedly. These individuals often have deep insecurities about their own competence or control, and they compensate by trying to dominate others through force of personality. For aggressive intimidators, your response must be calm, firm, and completely unintimidated. Do not match their energy level or engage in a shouting match. This plays into their strategy and gives them the conflict they're seeking. Instead, lower your voice and speak more slowly than usual. Say something like, "I can see you're upset, but I need you to lower your voice." If we're going to continue this conversation, if they don't comply, end the interaction immediately by saying, "We can continue this conversation when you're ready to speak respectfully." And physically remove yourself from the situation. The key with aggressive intimidators is to refuse to be intimidated while not escalating the conflict. They're counting on you to either cower in fear or match their aggression. When you do neither, you disrupt their entire strategy and force them to find a different approach. Most importantly, never reward their aggressive behavior by giving them what they want when they're being hostile. This only teaches them that aggression works. The passive-aggressive manipulator is perhaps the most frustrating type to deal with because their disrespect is covert and difficult to pin down. They use sarcasm, silent treatment, deliberate inefficiency, forgetting important requests, and backhanded compliments to express their hostility while maintaining plausible deniability. They can always claim they didn't mean it that way or that you're being too sensitive. For passive-aggressive manipulators, you must call out their behavior directly and refuse to participate in their games. When they make a sarcastic comment, say that sounded sarcastic. What did you actually mean? When they forget to do something important, say this is the second time this has happened. What system can we put in place to ensure this doesn't happen again? When they give you the silent treatment, acknowledge it directly. I notice you're not responding to my attempts to communicate. Let me know when you're ready to discuss this like adults. The goal with passive-aggressive manipulators is to force them into direct communication. They rely on indirect methods because direct confrontation makes them uncomfortable. By consistently calling out their behavior and requesting direct communication, you make their preferred strategy ineffective and force them to either communicate honestly or reveal their true hostility. The narcissistic controller believes they're superior to everyone else and entitled to special treatment. They interrupt constantly, dismiss other people's ideas, take credit for others' work, and expect everyone to accommodate their needs and preferences. They genuinely don't understand why other people's feelings or opinions should matter because they see themselves as the center of every situation. For narcissistic controllers, your response must be consistently assertive and focused on facts rather than feelings. Don't try to explain how their behavior affects you emotionally because they don't care and they'll use your emotions against you. Instead, focus on outcomes and consequences. Say things like, "That idea was developed by our team last month." When they try to take credit or "I need you to wait until I finish before you share your thoughts" when they interrupt. Set very clear expectations and consequences with narcissistic controllers. Say, "If you interrupt me again, I'll end this meeting and we can reschedule when you're ready to listen," and then follow through immediately if they test you. They respond to power and consequences, not to appeals for empathy or understanding. The insecure competitor sees every interaction as a competition that they must win. They constantly try to one-up others, undermine people's confidence, and position themselves as superior. Their disrespect often comes in the form of subtle put-downs, questioning your competence or trying to make you look bad in front of others. This behavior stems from deep insecurity about their own abilities and worth. For insecure competitors, your best strategy is to refuse to engage in their competition while confidently asserting your own value. When they try to one-up you, simply acknowledge their comment without feeling the need to compete back. Say, "That's interesting," and then redirect the conversation back to the original topic. When they question your competence, state your qualifications matter-of-factly. "I have 10 years of experience in this area, so I'm confident in my assessment." The key with insecure competitors is to not let them draw you into their competitive dynamic. The moment you start trying to prove you're better than them, you've already lost because you're playing their game. Instead, maintain confidence in your own abilities without needing to diminish theirs. The boundary tester is someone who constantly pushes limits to see what they can get away with. They're not necessarily malicious, but they have learned to take as much as people will give them. They might consistently be late, ask for special favors, interrupt your work, or make unreasonable demands. If you don't set clear limits, they'll continue pushing until they find your breaking point. For boundary testers, consistency is everything. Set clear expectations and enforce them every single time without exception. If you say meetings start at 2 p.m., start at 2 p.m. whether they're there or not. If you say you're not available after 6 p.m., don't answer work calls after 6 p.m. If you say you need 24 hours notice for schedule changes, don't accommodate last-minute requests. The moment you make an exception for a boundary tester, you teach them that your boundaries are negotiable. They'll remember that exception and use it to justify future boundary violations. Consistency in enforcement is more important than the specific rules you set. The emotional vampire uses guilt, manipulation, and emotional outbursts to control situations and get their way. They might cry when confronted about their behavior, claim they're being victimized, or use their personal problems as excuses for treating others poorly. They've learned that most people will back down when faced with emotional manipulation. For emotional vampires, you must separate their emotions from the actual issue and refuse to be manipulated by their emotional displays. Say things like, "I understand you're upset, but we still need to address the fact that you missed the deadline." Or, "Your personal situation is difficult, but it doesn't excuse the way you spoke to me earlier." Don't let their emotions derail the conversation or make you feel guilty for holding them accountable. Acknowledge their feelings without letting those feelings become an excuse for poor behavior. Stay focused on the specific behavior that needs to change regardless of their emotional state. The key to success with all these personality types is to remain emotionally regulated while being strategically assertive. Don't take their behavior personally, even though it feels personal. Their disrespectful behavior is a reflection of their own issues, not your worth. By understanding their psychological drivers and responding strategically rather than emotionally, you can effectively handle any type of disrespectful person while maintaining your own dignity and power. Chapter 6. The power of strategic withdrawal. And when to use it. Sometimes the most powerful response to disrespect is strategic withdrawal. This doesn't mean running away or avoiding conflict. Strategic withdrawal is a calculated decision to remove your energy, attention, and presence from someone who has demonstrated they don't value or respect you. It's one of the most underused but devastatingly effective tools for handling chronic disrespect. Most people struggle with strategic withdrawal because they've been conditioned to believe that walking away means giving up or letting the other person win. This thinking is completely backwards. When you strategically withdraw from someone who disrespects you, you're taking back your power and forcing them to experience the consequences of their behavior. You're also protecting your energy and mental health from further damage. Strategic withdrawal works because it removes the thing that disrespectful people need most. Your reaction and engagement. Toxic individuals feed off drama, conflict, and the emotional responses they can trigger in others. When you stop providing that fuel, their behavior becomes pointless and often stops on its own. More importantly, your withdrawal often makes them realize what they're losing and motivates them to change their approach. The key to effective strategic withdrawal is to make it clean, permanent, and non-negotiable until the other person demonstrates genuine change. This isn't about playing games or trying to manipulate someone into treating you better. It's about protecting yourself and establishing clear consequences for disrespectful behavior. In professional settings, strategic withdrawal might look like limiting your interactions to email only with someone who consistently disrespects you in person. This creates a paper trail and removes the opportunity for them to interrupt, dismiss, or intimidate you. You might also stop volunteering for projects that involve working closely with that person. Or you might request to be transferred to a different team or department. For colleagues who consistently take credit for your work, strategic withdrawal means stopping the collaborative relationship entirely. No more sharing ideas in informal conversations, no more offering assistance on their projects, and no more being available for their questions or requests. You become professionally cordial but completely unavailable for anything beyond the minimum required interaction. When dealing with a disrespectful supervisor, strategic withdrawal requires more careful planning because of the power dynamics involved. You might start by documenting all interactions, limiting face-to-face meetings, and requesting written instructions for all assignments. You're creating protection for yourself while making it more difficult for them to engage in their usual disrespectful behavior patterns. In personal relationships, strategic withdrawal often means reducing contact frequency, declining social invitations, and no longer sharing personal information with someone who has demonstrated they can't be trusted with your vulnerability. This is particularly important with family members who use your personal information against you or friends who consistently violate your boundaries. For romantic relationships where disrespect has become a pattern, strategic withdrawal might mean temporarily separating to allow both parties to reflect on the relationship dynamics. This isn't about playing hard to get or trying to manipulate your partner. It's about creating space for genuine change to occur and protecting yourself from further emotional damage. The timing of strategic withdrawal is crucial. It should happen after you've clearly communicated your boundaries and given the other person an opportunity to change their behavior. Strategic withdrawal isn't a first response. It's what you do when other approaches have failed or when the disrespect is so severe that immediate distance is necessary for your well-being before implementing strategic withdrawal. Make sure you're prepared for the potential consequences. Some people will escalate their behavior when they realize you're pulling away. Others might try to manipulate you into returning by promising to change or by claiming you're being unfair. You need to be mentally and emotionally prepared to maintain your boundaries regardless of their response. Strategic withdrawal also requires you to genuinely let go of the outcome. You can't withdraw strategically while secretly hoping the other person will chase after you or dramatically change their behavior. This approach only works when you're genuinely focused on protecting yourself rather than trying to control the other person's response. The most important aspect of strategic withdrawal is that it must be accompanied by a genuine shift in your own energy and attention. You can't withdraw your physical presence while continuing to obsess about the person mentally and emotionally. True strategic withdrawal means redirecting your energy toward people and activities that add value to your life. When you implement strategic withdrawal correctly, several things typically happen. First, you immediately feel relief because you're no longer subjecting yourself to ongoing disrespect. Second, you create space for better people and opportunities to enter your life. Third, you often gain clarity about the relationship and realize how much the other person's behavior was affecting your mental health and overall happiness. Some people will respond to your withdrawal by attempting to re-engage with improved behavior. This is where you need to be extremely careful. Don't rush back into the same level of engagement just because someone temporarily improves their treatment of you. Sustainable change takes time to demonstrate, and you should require consistent, respectful behavior over an extended period before considering returning to previous levels of interaction. Others will respond to your withdrawal with anger, accusations, or attempts to make you feel guilty. They might claim you're being dramatic, immature, or unfair. This response actually confirms that your withdrawal was necessary and appropriate. People who truly respect you will understand your need for space and will work to address the issues that led to your withdrawal. Strategic withdrawal becomes permanent separation when someone demonstrates they're unwilling or unable to change their disrespectful behavior. This is often the healthiest outcome, even though it can be emotionally difficult. Removing toxic people from your life creates space for relationships that actually enhance your well-being and support your growth. Remember that strategic withdrawal is an act of self-respect and self-preservation. You're not obligated to maintain relationships with people who consistently disrespect you, regardless of your history together or their importance in your life. Your mental health and personal boundaries are more important than preserving relationships that damage your well-being. Chapter 7. Building unshakable inner confidence that commands respect. External strategies for handling disrespect are important, but they're only effective when backed by genuine inner confidence. People can sense authentic confidence from across a room and they instinctively respond to it with respect. Conversely, people can also sense insecurity and uncertainty, which invites testing and disrespectful behavior. Building unshakable inner confidence is the foundation that makes all other respect-building strategies work. True confidence isn't about being arrogant, aggressive, or believing you're better than others. It's about having a deep, unshakable knowledge of your own worth that doesn't depend on external validation or approval. When you possess this kind of confidence, other people's opinions and behavior toward you become interesting information rather than threats to your sense of self. The first step in building unshakable confidence is understanding the difference between self-esteem and self-respect. Self-esteem is how you feel about yourself, which fluctuates based on circumstances, achievements, and other people's treatment of you. Self-respect is how you treat yourself, which remains constant regardless of external circumstances. People with high self-respect command respect from others because they demonstrate through their actions that they value themselves. Self-respect manifests in the standards you set for your own behavior and the standards you require from others. When you consistently act in alignment with your values, keep promises to yourself and refuse to accept poor treatment from others, you build a foundation of self-respect that naturally radiates confidence. One of the most important aspects of building confidence is developing what psychologists call an internal locus of control. This means believing that you have the power to influence your circumstances and outcomes through your choices and actions. People with an external locus of control believe that their lives are primarily determined by luck, other people's decisions or circumstances beyond their control. This mindset creates victim mentality and invites disrespectful treatment. To develop an internal locus of control, start focusing on what you can control rather than what you can't. You can't control other people's behavior, but you can control your responses to their behavior. You can't control whether you get promoted, but you can control the quality of your work and your professional development efforts. You can't control whether someone likes you, but you can control whether you like and respect yourself. Confidence also requires eliminating the habit of seeking external validation for your decisions and self-worth. Many people unconsciously seek approval from others before feeling good about their choices or accomplishments. This creates a dependent relationship where your confidence is hostage to other people's opinions. True confidence means making decisions based on your own values and judgment. Then standing behind those decisions regardless of others' reactions. Building competence in areas that matter to you is another crucial component of genuine confidence. It's difficult to feel confident when you know you're unprepared or lacking in skills that are important for your goals. Invest time and energy in developing expertise in your chosen field, improving your communication skills and building knowledge in areas that interest you. Competence creates confidence and confidence commands respect. Physical presence plays a significant role in how confident you feel and how others perceive you. Your posture, eye contact, vocal tone, and movement all communicate your level of confidence. Practice standing tall with your shoulders back, making direct eye contact during conversations, speaking clearly and at an appropriate volume, and moving with purpose rather than rushing or hesitating. These physical changes actually create psychological changes that increase your confidence over time. Mental rehearsal is a powerful tool for building confidence in challenging situations. Visualize yourself handling disrespectful behavior with calm assertiveness. See yourself setting boundaries clearly and following through on consequences. Imagine yourself walking into rooms with confidence and engaging in conversations as an equal. This mental practice prepares your subconscious mind for success and makes confident behavior more automatic when challenging situations arise. Developing strong personal boundaries is both a result of confidence and a builder of confidence. Every time you set a boundary and enforce it, you demonstrate to yourself that you're worth protecting. Every time you honor your own needs and values, you build evidence that you respect yourself. This creates a positive cycle where boundary setting increases confidence and increased confidence makes boundary setting easier. Challenge negative self-talk and replace it with realistic, empowering thoughts. Most people have an internal critic that constantly undermines their confidence with thoughts like "you're not good enough." They probably think you're stupid or you don't deserve better treatment. These thoughts become self-fulfilling prophecies that sabotage your confidence and invite disrespectful treatment from others. Start paying attention to your internal dialogue and actively challenge thoughts that undermine your confidence. Ask yourself if these thoughts are based on facts or fears. Look for evidence that contradicts your negative assumptions. Replace self-critical thoughts with neutral or supportive ones. This isn't about unrealistic positive thinking. It's about being fair and accurate in how you assess yourself and your capabilities. Surround yourself with people who treat you with respect and support your growth. The people you spend time with have a massive impact on your confidence and self-perception if you're constantly around people who criticize, dismiss, or undermine you. It's nearly impossible to maintain strong confidence. Conversely, when you're around people who appreciate your strengths and encourage your development, your confidence naturally grows. Take calculated risks and embrace failure as learning opportunities. Confidence grows through experience, and experience requires taking action despite uncertainty or fear of failure. Start with small risks in low-stakes situations and gradually work up to bigger challenges. Each time you survive a setback or learn from a mistake, you build evidence that you can handle whatever life throws at you. Celebrate your accomplishments and progress, even small ones. Many people dismiss their achievements or immediately focus on the next goal without acknowledging what they've accomplished. This habit undermines confidence by training your brain to overlook evidence of your capabilities and growth. Make it a practice to acknowledge your wins. Learn from your experiences and appreciate your development over time. Finally, understand that confidence is not a destination but a practice. You don't arrive at confidence and then maintain it effortlessly. It requires ongoing attention, maintenance, and development. Some days you'll feel more confident than others, and that's normal. The goal is to build a foundation of self-respect and self-knowledge that remains stable even when your confidence fluctuates. When you develop genuine, unshakable confidence, everything changes. People respond to you differently because you're operating from a fundamentally different energy. You stop seeking approval and start offering value. You stop accepting poor treatment and start expecting respect. Most importantly, you stop depending on others for your sense of worth and start generating that worth from within. Chapter 8. Handling disrespect in family relationships and close personal bonds. Family relationships present unique challenges when it comes to handling disrespect because of the emotional history, expectations, and social pressures involved. Many people accept disrespectful treatment from family members that they would never tolerate from strangers or colleagues. This happens because of misguided beliefs about family loyalty, guilt about setting boundaries with relatives, and the assumption that family dynamics can't or shouldn't change. The truth is that respect is just as important in family relationships as it is in any other area of life. In fact, it might be more important because family disrespect often starts in childhood and creates patterns that affect all your other relationships. Learning to handle family disrespect is crucial for your overall mental health and your ability to build healthy relationships throughout your life. One of the biggest obstacles to addressing family disrespect is the cultural narrative that family relationships should be preserved at all costs. You've probably heard phrases like blood is thicker than water. They're family, so you have to forgive them. Or that's just how they are. These beliefs create guilt and confusion when family members treat you poorly because you're caught between your need for respect and social expectations about family loyalty. The reality is that healthy family relationships are built on mutual respect. Just like any other healthy relationship, being related to someone doesn't give them permission to treat you poorly, and it doesn't obligate you to accept disrespectful behavior. Family members who truly love you will want to treat you with respect and will be willing to change problematic behaviors when you address them. Family disrespect often takes specific forms that are different from other types of disrespect. Emotional manipulation is extremely common where family members use guilt, shame, or emotional blackmail to control your behavior. They might say things like, "After everything I've done for you," or, "You're being selfish." When you set boundaries or make decisions they don't like, invalidation of your feelings and experiences is another common pattern in family disrespect. Family members might dismiss your concerns by saying you're too sensitive. That's not how it happened, or you're remembering it wrong. This gaslighting behavior is particularly damaging because it makes you question your own perception of reality. Boundary violations are frequent in family relationships because of the assumption that family members should have unlimited access to each other. This might include showing up unannounced, going through your personal belongings, sharing your private information with other family members, or making decisions about your life without consulting you. Comparison and competition create another form of family disrespect where your achievements are minimized, your struggles are dismissed, or you're constantly compared unfavorably to other family members. This behavior is designed to maintain family hierarchies and keep certain members in subordinate positions. The guilt and obligation manipulation is perhaps the most insidious form of family disrespect. Family members use your love and loyalty against you by claiming that setting boundaries or requesting respectful treatment means you don't love them or care about the family. This puts you in an impossible position where asserting your needs feels like betraying your family. When addressing family disrespect, you need to separate your love for the person from your acceptance of their behavior. You can love someone deeply while refusing to tolerate their disrespectful treatment. In fact, setting boundaries often improves family relationships by creating healthier dynamics based on mutual respect rather than enabling and resentment. Start by identifying the specific disrespectful behaviors that need to change. Family dynamics are often so complex and long-standing that it's easy to feel overwhelmed by everything that's wrong. Focus on the most problematic behaviors first and address them one at a time. Be specific about what the person is doing and how it needs to change. Communicate your boundaries clearly and calmly without lengthy explanations or justifications. Family members are experts at your emotional triggers and will often try to derail boundary-setting conversations by bringing up the past, making you feel guilty, or claiming you're hurting them. Stay focused on the specific behavior and the change you're requesting. For example, if a family member consistently criticizes your life choices, you might say, "I need you to stop making negative comments about my career decisions. If you can't support my choices, then let's not discuss them." If a parent tries to control your adult decisions, you might say, "I appreciate your concern, but I'm capable of making my own decisions about this." Be prepared for escalation when you start setting boundaries with family members. They're used to the old dynamics and will often increase their problematic behavior when you start pushing back. This is called an extinction burst in psychology, where behavior gets worse before it gets better. Stay consistent with your boundaries and don't give in to the pressure. Family members might try to recruit other relatives to pressure you into backing down from your boundaries. They might complain to other family members about how you're treating them. Or they might try to get others to convince you that you're being unreasonable. Don't engage in these triangulation dynamics. Address issues directly with the person involved and don't let others mediate your relationships. Sometimes family disrespect is so severe or long-standing that temporary or permanent distance is necessary. This is an incredibly difficult decision that often comes with guilt, grief, and social judgment. However, your mental health and well-being are more important than maintaining relationships that consistently damage you. If you decide to limit contact with disrespectful family members, be clear about your reasons and your expectations for future contact. You might say something like, "I need to take a break from our relationship until you're willing to treat me with respect. I'm open to rebuilding our relationship when that changes." This leaves the door open for reconciliation while protecting yourself from ongoing harm. Understand that some family members will never change their behavior regardless of how clearly you communicate your boundaries or how consistently you enforce consequences. This is painful to accept, especially with parents or siblings, but it's important to base your decisions on reality rather than hope. Focus on building strong relationships with family members who do treat you with respect. Not all family relationships are toxic, and it's important to nurture the healthy connections while protecting yourself from the unhealthy ones. This might mean spending holidays with chosen family or relatives who appreciate you rather than subjecting yourself to predictable drama and disrespect. Remember that healing from family disrespect often requires professional support. Family dynamics are complex, and the emotional patterns created in childhood can be difficult to change without guidance. Consider working with a therapist who specializes in family relationships and boundary setting. Finally, understand that setting boundaries with family members is an act of love for yourself and potentially for the relationship. When you stop enabling disrespectful behavior and start requiring better treatment, you create the possibility for healthier, more authentic relationships based on mutual respect rather than manipulation and control. Chapter 9. Recovering your self-worth after prolonged disrespectful treatment. When you've been subjected to prolonged disrespectful treatment, whether in relationships, family dynamics, or workplace situations, the damage goes far beyond the immediate interactions. Chronic disrespect creates deep wounds in your sense of self-worth that can persist long after the disrespectful treatment ends. Recovery requires intentional effort to rebuild your self-concept and heal the psychological damage that accumulates from being consistently devalued by others. The first step in recovery is understanding how prolonged disrespect affects your psychology. When you're repeatedly told that your thoughts don't matter, your feelings are invalid, or your contributions aren't valuable, your brain starts to accept these messages as truth. This process is called learned helplessness, where you internalize the belief that you're powerless to change your circumstances or that you somehow deserve poor treatment. Chronic disrespect also creates what psychologists call complex trauma. Unlike single-incident trauma, complex trauma results from repeated exposure to harmful experiences over time. The symptoms include chronic feelings of shame, difficulty trusting your own judgment, emotional dysregulation, and problems with self-identity. You might find yourself constantly second-guessing your decisions, minimizing your achievements, or accepting treatment that you would have rejected in the past. One of the most insidious effects of prolonged disrespect is the way it rewires your internal dialogue. After months or years of being criticized, dismissed, or invalidated, you often develop an internal critic that sounds exactly like the people who mistreated you. This inner voice becomes automatic and persistent, undermining your confidence and perpetuating the damage long after the external source of disrespect is gone. Recovery begins with recognizing that the treatment you received was not a reflection of your worth or value as a person. This sounds simple, but it's often the most difficult part of the healing process because the disrespectful messages have become deeply embedded in your self-concept. You need to actively challenge the beliefs about yourself that were created by other people's poor treatment. Start by identifying the specific negative beliefs about yourself that developed during the period of disrespectful treatment. Common examples include, "My opinions don't matter. I'm not smart enough. I don't deserve better treatment. I'm too sensitive or I cause problems for other people." Write these beliefs down and examine them objectively. Ask yourself if these beliefs were true before the disrespectful treatment began and look for evidence that contradicts these negative self-assessments. Rebuilding your self-worth requires creating new evidence that contradicts the negative messages you internalized. This means taking actions that demonstrate your value, competence, and worthiness of respect. Start with small accomplishments that you can build on over time. This might include completing projects successfully, learning new skills, helping others, or making decisions that turn out well. Practice self-compassion during the recovery process. Many people who have experienced prolonged disrespect become very hard on themselves, expecting perfect healing or becoming frustrated with the time it takes to rebuild their confidence. Treat yourself with the same kindness you would show a good friend who was recovering from similar experiences. Healing takes time and setbacks are a normal part of the process. Reconnect with your authentic self by exploring your interests, values, and preferences without the influence of the people who disrespected you. Prolonged disrespect often involves other people telling you what you should think, feel, or want. You might have lost touch with your own authentic preferences and desires. Spend time figuring out what you actually enjoy, what matters to you, and what kind of life you want to create. Surround yourself with people who treat you with respect and appreciation. This is crucial for recovery because you need to experience healthy interactions to recalibrate your expectations and self-worth. If you've been isolated or if your social circle was contaminated by disrespectful people, you might need to actively seek out new relationships and communities where you can experience being valued and respected. Set small achievable boundaries as practice for rebuilding your assertiveness skills after prolonged disrespect. Many people struggle with boundary setting because their confidence has been eroded. Start with low-stakes situations where you can practice saying no, expressing preferences or requesting respectful treatment. Each successful boundary setting experience builds evidence that you can protect yourself and deserve to be treated well. Address the hypervigilance that often develops after chronic disrespect. You might find yourself constantly scanning for signs of disapproval, rejection, or disrespect in your current relationships. While it's important to be aware of red flags, excessive hypervigilance can prevent you from forming healthy connections and enjoying positive interactions. Practice distinguishing between realistic concerns and trauma responses. Work on rebuilding your decision-making confidence. Prolonged disrespect often involves other people controlling or criticizing your decisions, which can leave you doubting your judgment. Start making small decisions independently and notice the outcomes. When your decisions turn out well, acknowledge your good judgment. When they don't turn out as expected, view them as learning experiences rather than evidence of your incompetence. Celebrate your progress and acknowledge your strength. Surviving prolonged disrespectful treatment requires enormous resilience and strength. Even if you don't feel strong right now, recognize that your survival itself is an accomplishment. Acknowledge the courage it takes to begin the recovery process and to start demanding better treatment for yourself. Consider professional help. If the effects of prolonged disrespect are significantly impacting your life, therapy can be particularly helpful for processing complex trauma, developing healthy coping strategies, and rebuilding your sense of self. Look for therapists who specialize in trauma recovery, relationship issues, or self-esteem problems. Be patient with the recovery process. Rebuilding self-worth after prolonged disrespect doesn't happen overnight. There will be good days and bad days, moments of clarity and periods of doubt. This is normal and expected. Focus on the overall trajectory of your healing rather than expecting linear progress. Remember that recovery is not just about returning to your pre-trauma state. The goal is to emerge from this experience stronger, wiser, and more resilient than before. Many people who successfully recover from prolonged disrespect report that they develop a deeper sense of self-respect, stronger boundaries, and better relationships than they had before the traumatic experiences. The most important thing to remember is that you deserve to be treated with respect, kindness, and consideration. This isn't something you need to earn through perfect behavior or exceptional achievements. Respect is a basic human right that you deserve simply because you exist. Your worth as a person is inherent and unchangeable regardless of how others have treated you in the past. Chapter 10. Advanced Psychological Strategies for Command and Influence. Once you've mastered the basics of handling disrespect and building personal boundaries, you can begin implementing advanced psychological strategies that not only protect you from disrespectful treatment, but actually position you as someone who naturally commands respect and influence. These techniques are based on deep principles of human psychology and social dynamics that most people don't understand or utilize effectively. The foundation of advanced influence is understanding that respect is fundamentally about perceived value and status. People naturally defer to those they perceive as valuable, competent, and confident. The key word here is perceived because respect is based more on social perception than on objective reality. This doesn't mean being fake or manipulative. It means understanding how to present your authentic value in ways that others naturally recognize and respond to. One of the most powerful psychological principles is the concept of social proof and authority. People look to others for cues about how to behave and whom to respect when you consistently demonstrate that others treat you with respect. New people in your environment will automatically adopt the same respectful stance. This is why it's crucial to never accept disrespectful treatment in public settings. Every person who witnesses you accepting poor treatment learns that such treatment is acceptable with you. The strategic use of contrast is another advanced technique. When you consistently maintain high standards for how you're treated while remaining calm and professional, you create a stark contrast with people who are emotionally reactive, accept poor treatment, or engage in drama. This contrast makes you appear more composed, competent, and worthy of respect by comparison. The key is to maintain this standard without being obviously judgmental of others who don't do the same. Controlled vulnerability is a sophisticated influence strategy where you selectively share personal information or admit limitations in ways that actually increase your credibility and influence. Most people think that showing any weakness diminishes their authority. But strategic vulnerability can actually enhance it. When you acknowledge a minor flaw or limitation while demonstrating overall competence, people perceive you as more honest and trustworthy, which increases their respect for you. The principle of reciprocity can be leveraged strategically by offering value to others before requesting anything in return. However, advanced practitioners understand that not all forms of value giving are equally effective. The most influential approach is to offer something that requires your unique skills or knowledge, demonstrates your competence, and creates a sense of indebtedness without being manipulative about it. Strategic scarcity involves making your time, attention, and availability appropriately limited rather than being constantly accessible to everyone. This doesn't mean being artificially unavailable or playing games, but rather being genuinely selective about how you invest your energy. When people have to earn your time and attention, they value it more highly and treat you with greater respect. The use of presupposition in communication is an advanced technique where you speak in ways that assume respect and cooperation rather than requesting or demanding it. Instead of saying, "Could you please not interrupt me?" you might say, "I'll finish this thought and then get your input." This subtle shift presupposes that the person will wait for you to finish rather than positioning their interruption as an option you're trying to discourage. Frame control is perhaps the most sophisticated psychological strategy for commanding respect. This involves consistently interpreting interactions and situations through a frame that positions you as valuable and worthy of respect. When someone tries to diminish you or test your boundaries, you reframe their behavior in a way that maintains your dignity and status. For example, if someone is consistently late to meetings with you, instead of complaining about their lateness, you might say, "I know you're busy, so let's make sure we use our time together efficiently." The strategic use of silence is another powerful tool that most people underutilize. Comfortable silence after making a point, asking a question or setting a boundary creates psychological pressure for the other person to respond thoughtfully rather than reactively. Many people rush to fill silence because it makes them uncomfortable. But learning to be comfortable with silence gives you significant psychological leverage in interactions. Understanding and utilizing the principle of commitment and consistency allows you to influence others' behavior by getting them to make small commitments that align with treating you respectfully. When people make a commitment, even a small one, they feel psychological pressure to remain consistent with that commitment. This might involve getting someone to agree to specific communication standards or behavioral expectations, which then makes it harder for them to violate those standards later. The concept of social positioning involves carefully managing how you're perceived within group dynamics and social hierarchies. This includes understanding when to speak and when to listen, how to support others in ways that enhance your own reputation, and how to disagree or challenge ideas without creating personal conflict. Advanced practitioners know how to be influential within groups without appearing to seek attention or dominance. Emotional regulation under pressure is a crucial advanced skill that sets respected individuals apart from those who are easily dismissed. When you can remain calm, thoughtful, and composed even when others are being disrespectful or trying to provoke you, it demonstrates a level of self-control and confidence that naturally commands respect. This doesn't mean being emotionless, but rather being in control of your emotional responses. The principle of strategic alliance building involves identifying and cultivating relationships with influential people who can support your position and status within various environments. This isn't about using people, but rather about building mutually beneficial relationships with individuals whose support enhances your credibility and influence. When respected people treat you with respect, others follow their lead. Advanced boundary enforcement goes beyond simply stating your limits to creating systems and consequences that automatically protect your boundaries without requiring constant vigilance. This might involve structuring your environment, relationships, and commitments in ways that make boundary violations less likely to occur and easier to address when they do happen. Finally, the mastery of what psychologists call meta-communication allows you to address relationship dynamics and communication patterns directly rather than just responding to surface-level content. This involves making observations about how conversations are going, pointing out patterns in interactions and addressing underlying issues that affect how people treat each other. These advanced strategies require practice and refinement over time, They're most effective when used authentically and ethically rather than as manipulation tactics. The goal is to position yourself as someone who naturally commands respect while maintaining your integrity and treating others fairly. When implemented correctly, these techniques create an environment where disrespectful behavior toward you becomes socially awkward and psychologically uncomfortable for others, naturally reducing its occurrence. Chapter 11. Creating a reputation that precedes you. Your reputation is one of your most valuable assets when it comes to commanding respect. People form expectations about how to treat you based on what they've heard about you before they even meet you. When you have a reputation as someone who maintains high standards and doesn't tolerate disrespectful treatment, most people will automatically treat you with respect from the very first interaction. Building this kind of reputation requires consistency over time and strategic thinking about how your actions and responses will be perceived and discussed by others. Every interaction you have is potentially being observed and evaluated by people who will carry that information into other contexts. This doesn't mean you should be paranoid or inauthentic, but it does mean being intentional about maintaining your standards even when you think no one important is watching. The foundation of a respect-commanding reputation is reliability in your standards. People need to know that you always maintain certain boundaries and expectations regardless of the situation or the people involved. When word gets around that you consistently refuse to accept certain types of treatment, people stop testing those boundaries because they know what the outcome will be. Professional reputation building starts with how you handle disrespect in workplace settings. When you address inappropriate behavior professionally but firmly, when you refuse to participate in gossip or undermining behaviors, and when you consistently deliver high-quality work while maintaining your personal boundaries, people begin to see you as someone who operates at a higher level. The way you speak about yourself and others contributes significantly to your reputation. People who command respect speak about their accomplishments without false modesty but also without arrogance. They acknowledge their strengths while being honest about areas for improvement. They speak about others fairly and avoid participating in character assassination or petty complaints, which positions them as trustworthy and mature. How you handle conflict and disagreement becomes part of your reputation narrative. When you can disagree with someone's ideas without attacking them personally, when you can stand firm on important issues while remaining respectful, and when you can navigate difficult conversations without becoming emotionally dysregulated. People recognize you as someone who can be trusted with important matters and challenging situations. Your reputation also includes how you treat people who can't do anything for you. The way you interact with service workers, subordinates, or people outside your social circle says more about your character than how you treat people in positions of power. When people observe you treating everyone with basic respect and courtesy, they understand that your respectful treatment of them is genuine rather than strategic. Social media and digital communication have become significant factors in reputation building. Your online presence should reflect the same standards and values that you maintain in person. This means avoiding public complaints about disrespectful treatment, not engaging in online arguments or drama, and presenting yourself professionally, even in casual digital contexts. The stories people tell about you become your reputation. When you handle disrespectful situations with grace and effectiveness, those stories get repeated and enhance your reputation. When someone tries to disrespect you publicly, and you respond with calm assertiveness that makes them look foolish, that story becomes part of your legend. When you stand up for someone else who's being treated poorly, that demonstration of character gets remembered and discussed. Reputation building also involves strategic visibility in contexts where your character and standards can be observed. This might mean volunteering for challenging projects where you can demonstrate your competence and integrity, participating in professional organizations, where you can build relationships with respected individuals, or taking on leadership roles where your decision-making and people skills can be evaluated by others. The consistency principle is crucial for reputation building. Your reputation must be based on consistent patterns of behavior rather than isolated incidents. People need to see that you maintain your standards even when it's inconvenient, expensive, or socially awkward. This consistency creates predictability, and people respect what they can predict and count on. Quality associations enhance your reputation significantly. When respected individuals choose to work with you, recommend you or include you in important activities, their reputation lends credibility to yours. This is why it's important to be selective about your professional and social associations and to avoid people whose reputations might contaminate yours through association. Your reputation should include being known as someone who adds value to situations and relationships. This means being the person who solves problems rather than creating them, who contributes constructively to discussions rather than just criticizing, and who makes things better rather than worse. When people know that your involvement in a project or situation will improve outcomes, they naturally treat you with more respect and deference. The way you handle success and failure also becomes part of your reputation. People respect individuals who can celebrate achievements without becoming arrogant and who can handle setbacks without becoming bitter or making excuses. Your reputation should include being someone who takes responsibility for outcomes and learns from experiences rather than blaming others or circumstances. Protection of your reputation requires saying no to opportunities, relationships, or behaviors that might compromise your standing. This might mean declining projects that you can't execute well. Avoiding social situations where you might be pressured to compromise your standards or ending relationships with people whose behavior reflects poorly on your judgment. Your reputation should precede you in a way that makes disrespectful behavior toward you seem obviously inappropriate to observers. When people know your standards and track record, they often intervene on your behalf when someone starts treating you poorly because they recognize that such treatment doesn't align with who you are and what you represent. Remember that reputation building is a long-term strategy that requires patience and persistence. You can't force people to respect you through manipulation or self-promotion. But you can create conditions where respect becomes the natural and logical response to who you are and how you operate. The investment you make in building a solid reputation pays dividends for years to come in the form of better opportunities, healthier relationships, and automatic respect from new people you encounter. Chapter 12. Mastering Professional Dynamics and Workplace Hierarchy. The workplace presents unique challenges for commanding respect because of formal hierarchies, power dynamics, and economic pressures that can complicate your ability to set boundaries and address disrespectful treatment. However, understanding how to navigate these complexities while maintaining your dignity and standards is crucial for your career success and professional satisfaction. Professional respect operates on multiple levels simultaneously. There's the respect that comes from your formal position and title, the respect that comes from your competence and expertise, and the respect that comes from your character and how you treat others. The most successful professionals understand how to leverage all three types of respect while never depending entirely on any single source. Positional respect is the easiest to understand but the most limited in scope. This is the respect that comes from your job title, formal authority, and place in the organizational hierarchy. While positional respect can be useful, it's also fragile because it disappears the moment you change roles or organizations. More importantly, people who only command positional respect often struggle when they need to influence peers or superiors who don't report to them. Competence-based respect is more durable and valuable than positional respect. This comes from your knowledge, skills, track record of results, and reputation for getting things done effectively. When people know that you're exceptionally good at what you do, they're naturally more inclined to treat you with respect because they recognize your value and want to maintain a good relationship with you. Character-based respect is the most powerful and sustainable form of professional respect. This comes from consistently demonstrating integrity, reliability, fair treatment of others, and principled decision-making. People respect individuals they can trust, predict, and count on to do the right thing even when it's difficult or costly. Understanding your organization's informal power structure is crucial for navigating workplace respect dynamics. Every organization has an official hierarchy and an unofficial network of influence that may be quite different. Identify who the real decision makers are, who the respected influencers are, and how information and influence actually flow through your organization. This knowledge helps you understand how to position yourself and address disrespectful treatment effectively. Workplace disrespect often manifests differently than personal disrespect because it's filtered through professional norms and legal considerations. Common forms include being excluded from important meetings or communications, having your ideas dismissed or stolen, being given unrealistic deadlines or impossible tasks, receiving public criticism for private matters, or being subjected to micromanagement that doesn't apply to your peers. When addressing workplace disrespect, documentation becomes crucial. Keep records of problematic interactions, including dates, witnesses, and specific behaviors. This documentation serves multiple purposes. It helps you identify patterns that might not be obvious in individual incidents. It provides evidence if you need to escalate the issue formally. And it helps you stay objective about situations that can become emotionally charged. The timing and setting of your response to workplace disrespect can determine whether your intervention is effective or counterproductive. Some situations require immediate public response to maintain your credibility, while others are better addressed privately to avoid escalating conflict unnecessarily. Learning to read these situations accurately is a crucial professional skill. For disrespect from supervisors, your approach must be more strategic because of the power imbalance involved. Focus on the impact of their behavior, on your ability to do your job effectively rather than on your personal feelings. Frame your concerns in terms of business outcomes and productivity rather than as complaints about how you're being treated. This makes it harder for them to dismiss your concerns as personal sensitivity. When dealing with disrespectful peers, you have more latitude to address the behavior directly and immediately. However, you still need to maintain professional standards and avoid creating drama that could damage your reputation. Use clear factual language and focus on specific behaviors rather than making character judgments about the other person. Disrespect from subordinates requires a different approach that demonstrates your authority while remaining fair and professional. Address problematic behavior immediately and clearly communicate your expectations moving forward. Follow up consistently to ensure compliance and document any ongoing issues that might require formal disciplinary action. Understanding the difference between personality conflicts and genuine disrespect is important in professional settings. Not everyone will like your communication style or approach to work, and that's normal. However, personal preferences don't excuse unprofessional behavior or treatment that undermines your ability to do your job effectively. Building strategic alliances within your organization provides protection against disrespectful treatment and support when issues arise. Cultivate relationships with respected colleagues who can serve as witnesses, advisors, and advocates when necessary. These relationships should be genuine and mutually beneficial rather than purely strategic. Know your organization's policies and procedures for addressing workplace issues. This includes understanding your company's harassment and discrimination policies, grievance procedures, and escalation processes. Even if you prefer to handle issues informally, knowing your formal options gives you leverage and confidence in addressing problems. Sometimes workplace disrespect is systemic rather than individual, stemming from organizational culture, leadership problems, or structural issues. In these cases, individual strategies may not be sufficient, and you might need to consider whether the environment is compatible with your values and career goals. Not every workplace can be fixed, and sometimes the best response to systemic disrespect is strategic career planning. Professional development investments in your skills, knowledge, and network increase your leverage for commanding respect and your options if situations become intolerable. When you're highly skilled and well-connected, you have more power to set boundaries and address problems because people recognize your value. And you have alternatives if current situations don't improve. The key to long-term success in professional environments is building a reputation as someone who delivers excellent results while maintaining high standards for how they're treated. This combination makes you valuable enough that people want to work with you and clear enough in your expectations that they know how to treat you appropriately. Over time, this approach creates a professional environment where respect becomes automatic rather than something you have to fight for constantly. Chapter 13. Teaching others how to treat you through consistent standards. The most effective way to handle disrespectful people is to prevent disrespectful behavior from occurring in the first place. This happens when you consistently demonstrate through your actions and responses what treatment you will and won't accept. People are constantly gathering information about your boundaries and standards through every interaction, and they adjust their behavior accordingly. When you teach them clearly and consistently, most people will treat you exactly the way you've taught them to. The concept of teaching others how to treat you is based on the psychological principle that human behavior is shaped by consequences. When certain behaviors toward you result in positive outcomes for the other person, those behaviors increase. When certain behaviors result in negative outcomes or fail to achieve the desired result, those behaviors decrease. You are constantly providing consequences through your responses. Whether you realize it or not, most people accidentally teach others to disrespect them by inconsistently enforcing their boundaries or by providing positive reinforcement for negative behavior. For example, if you sometimes laugh off inappropriate comments and sometimes get upset about them, you're teaching the other person that your boundaries are unpredictable and negotiable. If you complete work that someone else should have done because they didn't follow through, you're teaching them that irresponsibility works because someone else will handle the consequences. Consistency is the foundation of effective teaching. Your standards and responses need to be predictable enough that people can learn what to expect from you. This doesn't mean being rigid or inflexible about everything. But it does mean having clear non-negotiable boundaries that you enforce every single time regardless of circumstances or your mood. The teaching process begins with the very first interaction you have with someone. People form impressions and start testing boundaries immediately, often within the first few minutes of meeting you. How you respond to their initial behavior sets the tone for all future interactions. This is why it's crucial to establish your standards early rather than waiting until problems develop. Clear communication of expectations is essential for effective teaching. Many people assume others should just know how to treat them respectfully. But standards for respect vary significantly between individuals and cultures. Being explicit about your expectations removes ambiguity and gives people the information they need to treat you appropriately. This doesn't mean delivering lengthy speeches about your boundaries to everyone you meet. It means communicating your standards through your actions and addressing issues promptly when they arise. When someone violates a boundary, your response should clearly indicate that the behavior was unacceptable and what you expect instead. The timing of your responses is crucial for effective teaching. Immediate feedback is much more effective than delayed feedback because people can connect their behavior directly to the consequence. If someone interrupts you during a meeting and you address it weeks later during a performance review, the teaching moment has been lost. However, if you stop them mid-interruption and say, "Let me finish my thought," the lesson is clear and immediate. Positive reinforcement is just as important as boundary reinforcement in teaching others how to treat you. When people treat you with respect, acknowledge it and respond positively. This reinforces the behavior and makes it more likely to continue. Many people focus only on addressing negative behavior while ignoring positive behavior, which misses opportunities to strengthen respectful treatment patterns. Understanding different learning styles helps you adapt your teaching approach to different personalities. Some people respond best to direct, explicit feedback about their behavior. Others learn better from observing consequences without lengthy explanations. Some people need multiple reminders before new patterns stick while others adjust immediately after one clear correction. Group dynamics add complexity to the teaching process. Because people often behave differently in groups than they do individually, your responses to disrespectful behavior in group settings teach not only the person engaging in the behavior, but also everyone who witnesses the interaction. This makes public boundary setting particularly important for establishing your reputation and standards. Cultural and generational differences can affect how people interpret your teaching efforts. What feels like appropriate boundary setting to you might feel aggressive or unreasonable to someone from a different background. However, this doesn't mean you should compromise your standards. It means being aware of these differences and adapting your communication style while maintaining your boundaries. The escalation process is an important part of teaching others how to treat you. Most situations should start with gentle correction and escalate only if the behavior continues. This might involve a private conversation, then a more formal discussion, then involving supervisors or ending the relationship entirely. Having a clear escalation process helps people understand that continued disrespectful behavior will have increasingly serious consequences. Some people will test your standards more aggressively than others, particularly if they're used to getting their way through persistence or manipulation. These individuals require especially consistent responses because they're specifically looking for inconsistencies they can exploit. Don't make exceptions for people who push harder. This only teaches them that pressure tactics work with you. Environmental factors can influence how effectively you can teach others to treat you. In some workplace cultures or family dynamics, your ability to set consequences may be limited by external factors. However, you always have some degree of control over your responses, even in challenging environments. Focus on what you can control rather than becoming frustrated by limitations you can't change. The teaching process requires patience because changing established patterns takes time. People who have been treating you disrespectfully for months or years won't immediately adjust to new standards. Expect some resistance, testing, and gradual improvement rather than immediate transformation. Consistency over time is more effective than perfect responses in every single moment. Documentation can be helpful in the teaching process, particularly in professional environments. Keeping records of your communications about expectations and boundaries provides evidence of your consistency and helps you track whether people are actually learning and improving over time. Remember that some people are unwilling or unable to learn respectful treatment regardless of how clearly and consistently you teach them. In these cases, the teaching process serves a different purpose. It demonstrates that you gave them fair opportunity to adjust their behavior before implementing more serious consequences like ending the relationship or seeking formal intervention. The ultimate goal of teaching others how to treat you is to create relationships where respect is automatic rather than something you have to constantly monitor and enforce. When people understand your standards and have experienced consistent consequences for violating them, respectful treatment becomes their default approach because they've learned it's the most effective way to interact with you. Chapter 14. Building long-term relationships based on mutual respect. Creating lasting relationships built on mutual respect requires a fundamentally different approach than simply defending yourself against disrespectful treatment. While boundary setting and consequence enforcement are necessary skills, sustainable relationships require positive strategies that foster mutual appreciation, understanding, and consideration. The goal is to create relationship dynamics where respect flows naturally in both directions rather than being something you have to fight for constantly. Mutual respect starts with genuine respect for others. Not just demanding respect for yourself. This means treating other people's time, feelings, opinions, and boundaries with the same consideration you want for your own. You can't build relationships based on mutual respect if you're only focused on receiving respect while being casual about giving it. This doesn't mean accepting poor treatment, but it does mean modeling the behavior you want to receive. Authentic relationships require vulnerability and genuine connection, which can only happen when both people feel safe to be themselves without fear of judgment, criticism, or exploitation. Creating this emotional safety requires demonstrating that you can be trusted with other people's vulnerabilities and that you won't use their openness against them later. This level of trust takes time to build and can be destroyed quickly if not handled carefully. Clear communication about needs, expectations, and boundaries is essential for mutual respect, but must be balanced with flexibility and understanding. Healthy relationships involve two people with different backgrounds, preferences, and communication styles who need to find ways to honor both perspectives. This requires ongoing negotiation and adjustment rather than rigid enforcement of your preferences. The reciprocity principle governs most successful long-term relationships. This doesn't mean keeping score or expecting immediate returns for every gesture, but it does mean ensuring that both people are contributing to the relationship's success and both are receiving benefits from the connection. Relationships become unbalanced and ultimately fail when one person consistently gives more than they receive or takes more than they contribute. Conflict resolution skills are crucial for maintaining respect during disagreements and challenges. Every long-term relationship will face conflicts, and how you handle these conflicts determines whether they strengthen or weaken the relationship. Respectful conflict resolution involves addressing issues directly rather than avoiding them, focusing on specific behaviors rather than character attacks, and seeking solutions that work for both people rather than just trying to win. Emotional regulation during challenging moments protects the foundation of respect even when you're upset, frustrated, or disappointed. Your ability to remain respectful even when you're not feeling respected demonstrates maturity and character that deepens other people's respect for you over time. This doesn't mean suppressing your emotions, but it does mean expressing them in ways that don't damage the relationship. Appreciation and acknowledgement practices actively reinforce the respectful behaviors you want to see continue. Many people focus primarily on addressing problems while failing to acknowledge when things are going well. Regularly expressing appreciation for respectful treatment, thoughtful gestures, and positive qualities reinforces these behaviors and creates positive momentum in the relationship. Growth mindset in relationships means expecting both yourself and others to learn, change, and improve over time rather than assuming people are fixed in their current patterns. This perspective allows for forgiveness when people make mistakes, patience during learning processes, and optimism about the relationship's potential for development. However, it also requires evidence of actual growth rather than just hoping for change that never materializes. Boundaries in healthy relationships are collaborative rather than unilateral whenever possible. While you have the right to set boundaries about your own behavior and what treatment you'll accept, the strongest relationships involve discussing and agreeing on mutual expectations rather than simply announcing your limits. This collaborative approach helps both people understand and support each other's needs. Trust building happens through consistent small actions over time rather than grand gestures or promises. Following through on commitments, being honest about your limitations, admitting mistakes, and demonstrating reliability in everyday matters, creates the foundation of trust that allows relationships to deepen and flourish. Trust, once broken, requires significant time and effort to rebuild. Individual identity preservation within close relationships prevents the resentment and loss of self that can undermine respect over time. Healthy relationships enhance rather than diminish each person's individual identity. This means maintaining your own interests, friendships, goals, and values while building something together. When people lose themselves in relationships, they often become resentful and the dynamic becomes unhealthy. The investment principle recognizes that quality relationships require ongoing time, energy, and attention from both parties. Like any valuable asset, relationships deteriorate without proper maintenance and care. This means prioritizing relationship health even when you're busy, stressed, or dealing with other challenges. Neglect is one of the fastest ways to erode mutual respect and connection. Compatibility assessment helps you identify which relationships have the potential for long-term mutual respect and which ones may be fundamentally incompatible with your values or needs. Not every person is capable of the kind of relationship you want, and not every relationship should be pursued long-term. Learning to recognize compatibility early saves time and emotional energy for relationships with better potential. Quality over quantity in relationships means investing deeply in fewer relationships rather than trying to maintain many superficial connections. Deep, respectful relationships require significant time and energy to develop and maintain. Most people have limited capacity for truly intimate relationships. So, choosing wisely about where to invest your emotional resources is crucial for long-term satisfaction. The evolution perspective recognizes that healthy relationships change and grow over time rather than staying static. The way you interact with someone in the early stages of a relationship will naturally evolve as you get to know each other better and as circumstances change. Being open to this evolution while maintaining core standards for respect allows relationships to deepen and strengthen over time. Long-term thinking about relationships means making decisions based on sustainable patterns rather than short-term convenience or emotional reactions. This might mean having difficult conversations earlier rather than avoiding them. Investing time in relationship maintenance even when you're busy, or ending relationships that consistently drain your energy despite repeated efforts to improve them. Remember that building relationships based on mutual respect is ultimately about creating connections that enhance both people's lives rather than relationships that require constant management and conflict resolution. When you get this right, respect becomes the natural foundation for all your interactions rather than something you have to work to achieve and maintain. Chapter 15. The mindset of someone who never tolerates disrespect. The ultimate goal of learning to handle disrespectful people is to develop a mindset where disrespectful treatment becomes so foreign to your experience that it rarely occurs. And when it does, you handle it so effortlessly that it has no impact on your confidence or well-being. This mindset shift represents a fundamental transformation in how you see yourself, how you interact with the world, and how the world responds to you. People who never tolerate disrespect operate from a deep, unshakable knowledge of their own worth that doesn't depend on external validation or circumstances. They don't need to prove their value to others because they know their value intrinsically. This inner certainty creates an energy that others can sense and naturally respond to with respect. It's not arrogance or superiority. It's simply a quiet confidence in their own worthiness of good treatment. This mindset includes the understanding that how others treat you is information about them, not about you. When someone is disrespectful, people with this mindset don't take it personally or wonder what they did wrong. They recognize that disrespectful behavior reveals the other person's character, emotional state, or personal issues. This perspective allows them to respond strategically rather than emotionally. The expectation of respect becomes so natural that alternatives don't even register as possibilities. Just as you wouldn't expect someone to walk into your house and start breaking your furniture, people with this mindset don't expect others to violate their emotional or psychological boundaries. This expectation isn't demanding or entitled. It's simply the natural assumption that guides their interactions. Emotional immunity to disrespect develops when you truly understand that someone else's poor behavior has no bearing on your worth or identity. Insults bounce off. Dismissive behavior feels irrelevant, and attempts at manipulation seem almost childish. This immunity doesn't come from building walls or becoming emotionally numb. It comes from having such a solid sense of self that external negativity can't penetrate your core identity. The response repertoire becomes automatic and effortless. Instead of having to think through how to handle each incident of disrespect, people with this mindset have internalized effective responses so thoroughly that they occur naturally. Setting boundaries feels as automatic as stepping out of the rain. Ending toxic relationships feels as natural as leaving a restaurant with bad food. Energy management becomes focused on positive creation rather than defensive protection. When you're not constantly dealing with disrespectful treatment or recovering from its effects, you have significantly more mental and emotional energy available for pursuing your goals. Building meaningful relationships and creating the life you want. This positive focus attracts more positive people and opportunities. The magnetic effect occurs when your energy and standards naturally attract respectful people while repelling those who can't or won't treat you well. You become a magnet for quality relationships and opportunities because high-value people recognize and are drawn to others who maintain high standards. Simultaneously, toxic individuals find you less appealing as a target because they sense you won't provide the drama and reaction they seek. Decision-making becomes clearer and faster because you're not trying to accommodate or please people who don't respect you. When someone's disrespectful behavior makes them incompatible with your standards, the decision to limit or end the relationship becomes obvious rather than agonizing. This clarity saves enormous amounts of time and emotional energy that many people waste trying to fix unfixable relationships. The abundance mindset replaces scarcity thinking about relationships and opportunities. People who tolerate disrespect often do so because they fear losing relationships or opportunities if they set boundaries. People with the no-tolerance mindset understand that better relationships and opportunities are always available to those who maintain high standards. They're willing to let go of what doesn't serve them because they trust in their ability to attract what does. Self-advocacy becomes a natural expression of self-respect rather than an uncomfortable confrontation. Speaking up for yourself feels as normal as ordering food at a restaurant or asking for directions when you're lost. There's no internal struggle or anxiety about whether you deserve better treatment. You simply take the action necessary to ensure you receive it. The teaching function becomes automatic in all relationships. People with this mindset naturally train others to treat them well through their consistent responses and standards. They don't have to think strategically about how to teach others. Their natural responses to respectful and disrespectful behavior automatically shape how others interact with them. Forgiveness becomes easier because boundaries prevent repeat offenses. When you consistently maintain strong boundaries, people who make mistakes have clear feedback about how to avoid making the same mistakes again. This makes genuine forgiveness possible because you're not being asked to forgive the same behavior repeatedly. Forgiveness becomes about isolated incidents rather than ongoing patterns. The role model effect means that your standards and responses inspire others to raise their own standards. People around you start expecting better treatment for themselves because they see what's possible when someone refuses to accept less. Your example gives others permission to value themselves more highly and demand better treatment in their own relationships. Peace becomes your default emotional state because you're not constantly fighting battles or recovering from emotional wounds. When disrespectful treatment is rare and quickly resolved when it occurs, your nervous system can relax into a state of calm confidence. This peaceful energy is attractive to others and creates positive cycles in all your relationships. The legacy perspective means thinking about the long-term impact of your standards and choices. People with this mindset understand that how they allow themselves to be treated sets an example for their children, influences their professional reputation, and affects the overall quality of their life experience. They make decisions based on the cumulative effect over time rather than just immediate comfort or convenience. This mindset shift doesn't happen overnight, but it's the natural result of consistently applying the principles and strategies outlined throughout this guide. Each time you set a boundary, each time you refuse to accept poor treatment, each time you choose self-respect over people-pleasing, you're building the foundation for this transformation. The journey from tolerating disrespect to never accepting it is ultimately a journey of self-discovery and self-empowerment. You're not just learning to handle difficult people. You're learning to value yourself, trust your judgment, and create the kind of life and relationships that align with your highest values and aspirations. When you reach this level of mastery, you'll find that life becomes significantly easier, relationships become more fulfilling, and opportunities become more abundant. Most importantly, you'll have the deep satisfaction that comes from living in alignment with your values and treating yourself with the respect you deserve. This is not just about handling disrespectful people. It's about creating a life where respect is the foundation for everything you build.